Progress.
For the January 12th, 2023 Public Works Committee, can I get a roll call, please? Yep.
Here?
Here. Here.
All right, move on to approval of the agenda. Any comments or changes? Great, seeing none, approved by acclamation. Any citizen comments?
Gallery.
All right, move on to reports of community chairs. All I like to say is welcome to the first official Brentwood meeting of 2023. Obviously, we're starting the year off right. Our good committee. All right. Nancy?
No report.
Jeff?
No report.
Jack?
No report.
All right, moving to Public Works. Happy New Year, Dan.
I have a bunch of odds and ends here just to give you a brief update. So if you need to stop me anywhere, go ahead. Strassner Lights, there's still no movement on that. We're waiting for Meyer to get those units so that they can put them in. So that's where we are with that. It hasn't been forgotten. York Village, the solar streetlights since the last meeting, we actually swapped out the one at 9 Middlesex. I've gone out there a couple times at night. I'll probably swing by after this meeting. They're all working. So there's the 2 at York Hills Drive, those work, and then the 3 we put in last year. Everything's working, and the app seems to show that the firmware is working as well. And then the 2023 street RFP, Vernon Jones finished all the work out there. Park Ridge is essentially done. I know Alderwoman Tice notified us that we need to go out there and correct some settled areas, take out some rock. We'll just do that in-house rather than have them come back out because it's just easier. So whenever it's a warm, decent day, we'll scrape out any loose rocks, put new seed down. We'll probably have to go back again in like March, April to reseed it because nothing's going to take. And then not only that, but later on in here, there's the concrete area at 2323 Park Ridge. So we'll take care of that concrete in the spring as well. Litzinger Road bike awareness. Whenever I get enough staff and we get time, we'll start popping in those warning signs for bicycle awareness as was suggested in previous meetings. Evans Howard Monument, I know that InGraphics had submitted the permit paperwork, and I believe that David Fairgreaves said that the permit would be issued. They haven't started yet, but they will start the construction of the foundation here in the next probably week or so, especially since it's supposed to be good weather next week.
Do you know what the kind of approximate length of time it'll take to construct it?
He said it would only be like about a 3-week process.
Okay.
You know, if you get good weather, it's pretty fast. It's like a little bit of grading, concrete foundation, let it cure, and then do the brickwork because everything else is prefabbed.
Okay, thanks.
So should be pretty fast. 8543 Eulalie, that's that area between Rosalie and Eulalie and Helen, that little quadrant. The resident had asked what we were going to do to address the sinkhole in his yard, which he attributed to the runoff. You know, normally we don't work in people's backyards. I don't know if you have an opinion on what we should do there. You know, we raised the curb, and that's one of the projects that's in the stormwater report, but its rank is fairly low based on its price point. So could put some dirt in, but I don't know that it's 100% attributed to that, but.
Yeah, Nancy?
Well, I think we have a stormwater plan, and we adopted that, so I think we need to follow our stormwater
Right.
plan and the rankings therein.
Yeah, I hadn't planned on doing anything else there. I mean, if he's got a sinkhole, he could fill it in with some dirt and maybe it doesn't do anything. So, okay.
I would say the curb looks good, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say there were some broken pieces before, and the goal was to, in the spring, like replace the other broken pieces that were in that stretch, just so it's symmetric on either side of the inlet, if that makes sense.
I haven't had a chance to run over there during heavy rain to see how it goes.
I haven't either. I'm just assuming that I'd get a phone call if it wasn't working or made it worse, but. And then Barnstable at Salem, I actually did contact Missouri American again. They were supposed to send an emergency crew out today to go investigate that because they said now the homeowner has a higher than normal water bill. So when you look at historically, you know, all of a sudden it's like a 50% increase, and it's during the winter when typically you would use less water. So I said, well, I probably think it's leaking ahead of the meter or maybe some behind the meter. Because it went out yesterday when it didn't rain, and of course there's, you know, water coming from that corner and then trickling down Salem. It's like, I don't know why this is under pressure. If it's a spring, it should eventually reach equilibrium. So it's more than likely a water leak that's been going for God only knows how long. Yeah,
Are they gonna reimburse her?
I don't know. Yeah, I want them to dig it up and fix it if that's what the case is, because they're
Yeah.
like, well, if it's the original service line, it could be that it's reached the end of its useful life and needs to be replaced with copper or just put some clamp on it or something. to fix it. The Lee Wind Trail, the access ramp, that's tied over at Eulalie Rosalie. That's also tied to the Lee Wind Trail repairs. So those two will be, I think I'll just combine them for the next report so it makes a little more sense, put them together. Mary Kay Court, we haven't forgotten about that either, so we'll put something in the spring, some sort of geogrid. It should be about what we thought it was last year for the cost. If it's gone up significantly, we'll let you know. 2323 Park Ridge, we already discussed. Streetlight banners, Janet gave us some streetlight banners to put up. So the ones that were the Centennial along Litzinger and along Strassner, those are all replaced. We did actually have a special set made, like 10 out of the 15 that were like buy local season's greetings. So we took those down, boxed those up, and then now these are just the Brentwood logo ones for those 15. And then if we want to change them out later, we can. It's not super expensive. The hardware is already there. Lee Wind Trail repairs and the Hanley Park slope repairs. So Castle submitted plans to MSD for a permit. MSD came back, wanted some changes made to those plans. They actually want it looks like a gabion basket, but it's not like the steel type. It's actually like a plastic, like polyethylene. So basically it's a plastic basket with rock crammed in it. And those would be stacked up like a gravity block wall. They wanted it like one row higher, and then they wanted some elevations on there that weren't on the plan. So those were resubmitted. I would expect a permit maybe next week. It should be like mid-January or so. So that would take care of the plans with them. They've already submitted to the Corps of Engineers. They didn't have any comments. So assuming that MSD issues the permit, we could actually start work on that particular repair. The Hanley Park slope repairs, though, that's the area near that little pedestrian bridge in Hanley Park. The only the only solution that they could really come up with, because it's such a sheer drop, were soil nails where they auger horizontally and then build up a wall. That's super expensive. It's like in the $900,000 range. So I was like, we really got to think of something outside the box on that. There's no way I would want to put that kind of money to fix a short run of. I'd close the trail before it spent $900,000. You could probably buy some easement and just kick it further away from the bank and call it a day. I know we're challenged there because it's close to that K&S construction, or it used to be K&S. But I'm sure there's a way to redo the fence and do an easement and just push it further away, cheaper than this.
Do we know if Little Bit's going to move back? That's right by the Little Bit there, right?
Yes, I do not know.
So,
I,
well,
Have
I
you
think
heard?
that's where it's located, but I don't know
right,
if they're moving
next,
back.
we haven't heard. We can ask. We don't know. Oh, Eric knows.
Is we just got that cost this week. Yeah. So I've not had a chance to talk to FEMA about that, because that is should be a FEMA reimbursable expense. I think they'll take a look at that price tag and say, what else can we do? And then we can have those conversations. But I think the first step is to talk with FEMA, since it is flood damage.
Okay, and then along that same project vein, creek cleaning project, Castle's been working on the east side of Black Creek, basically between Litzinger and Manchester. I've got a meeting with him tomorrow. That east side should be pretty much cleaned up, so that would be like behind the watering bowl, Galaxy flooring, that section. And then if we're fine with that east side, next week they'll flip over to the west side of the same creek and then clear along Oak Tree Park. That doesn't have near the amount of debris on the Oak Tree side as it did on the private side. And then once that's all done, then of course we'll switch over to like Millman Lumber and New Deer Creek. So that should wind down here in January. Sanitation truck purchase, I just put that in there because we started getting quotes. The quote for the larger truck, like typically we have a 25 cubic yard hopper on a large truck with dual axles in the rear. It was pushing 300,000. The budget's 250. you know, we get another 35,000 a grant, I'm only at 285, I'm still not at the 300,000 threshold. So we started looking at a smaller truck with a single axle and 20 cubic yard. But then we're also looking at what the trade-in value of one of the existing trucks is so that we can get the best of both worlds. So we'll probably come back and present two different costs for a 20 and a 25, and then which is the best that we would select that falls within budget. And then the only other thing I had that wasn't on here, wanted to bring to your attention, I'll put it in the weekly report too, but received an email from the folks at East West Gateway. There's a recycling in the St. Louis region sustainability meeting, a lot of words, but basically what it is they'll go through, you can either attend virtually or in person. The meeting itself is scheduled for January 31st from 3:45 to 5 p.m. Again, it's either Zoom or you can be in person. If you're in person, it's at the Sharp Tooth Boardroom, which is on the 5th floor of the T-Rex building at 911 Washington Avenue. So what they're supposed to do is have Republic representatives there and some other representatives to discuss, like when you collect recycling in the St. Louis region, it goes to Republic, what actually happens to it, which, you know, some of us took a tour and saw what happened to it. And then they'll also have a person there to describe what happens to plastic bags, where you should take those so that they actually get recycled. You know, we don't actually take them. If they're in there, we reject them. But there are depots throughout the St. Louis region, you know, usually grocery stores and Target where you can take those. So again, that'll be on the 31st of January.
Is there anything we can do to support that? I mean, I was really appreciative of how open Republic was when we came to visit, and, you know.
They said
just-
like all their people can attend, you know, I don't know about city like residents. I guess they could if it's Zoom, it wouldn't be a big deal. I know if you go downtown to the room, it's limited as to how many people can fit in the room, but. And then there'll be like a meet and greet like afterwards, you know, if you just want to see what other people are doing or if there's, you know, ideas that can be shared, that's all something that's useful. So I planned on attending via Zoom, but I'll put the Zoom link up on the weekly report.
I mean, you know, I estimate we saved about $10,000 this year by recycling. You know, because we're getting good commodity prices off of your totals. I
Yep.
mean, it's,
Yeah, and I got the December bill, which I'll plug into the spreadsheet and I'll just upload that tomorrow
you.
to the week. Overall, we're
yeah,
spending less.
Jeff?
I just have a couple of, a few topics that I wanted to ask your input on. One, there's been just some very rough roads that I've noticed over, one especially on Florence between Ruth and Dorothy. It looks like there was either some water line repair, and then when they came back and did the asphalting, it's settled quite a bit. So the asphalt actually, it's almost like a washout almost. Obviously, there's a lot of traffic going on right now, cut through because of Dorothy being shut down at Manchester. So, but I just wanted to put that on your radar to have you take a look at it and see if they
Right.
need to come back out and fix it.
That
once
was
all the
Missouri
work's done.
American, if it's where I think it is.
I think it was
it's
Missouri
there.
American.
But if it's settled and they don't come back, like I can have staff just add some temporary asphalt mix to kind of level it out.
Okay, so,
So it doesn't cause an accident or whatever.
yeah, and obviously, I don't think there's anything you should do now because there's still a lot of construction going on right there, so. But just wanted to put it on your radar. The other one is I don't know if you've been contacted yet or if you know the source of the leak of water that's at Garden Court that runs down Brentwood Boulevard. It seems like right there at the mobile
run,
station.
yeah.
Is that their on their property?
I
or-
called it into Missouri American. Mobile called us, and I said, well, we don't provide you with water service. It's Missouri American. So between the two of us, we contacted Missouri American today, and then there should be a crew looking at it, because they said it didn't happen until like right after Christmas with that hard freeze.
Right.
I said it could be your service line, it could be the main itself where the service connects to it.
Yeah, that's when I first noticed it too. I mean, there's a huge ice buildup there.
Yeah, I didn't know
because of
about it until just, today, but
Yeah.
I know staff said something about a leak, and I didn't know what they were talking about. I'm like, well, Garden Court's a dead end,
It was right on, you can see it just bubbling up right out of the corner there. I figured it was their property. I just want to make sure that was on your radar too.
Yes, yeah, they notified him as well, so hopefully someone will be out there today or tomorrow to take a look at it.
And there's been several complaints about the new exit from the McGrath school, the very, right at the very first, especially on high school. Seems like that their berm comes out really far onto High School Drive. It may be legally where they could have brought that, but I just want to make sure that that was built according to specs and,
I know we
because it
brought
seems
up,
like
yeah.
there's a lot of people that are concerned about hitting that when two-way traffic's coming along.
I know Lee's been made aware of it too, Lee Cannon with CBB, because it supposedly is built per plan. But I know that the original, like curb face to curb face dimension, I looked it up in a spreadsheet we have, it's 26 feet. When they did the improvements, it necked it down to 24.5, so you lost 18 inches roughly. And I'm like, well, that's still enough lane width for two cars to travel. It's just visually the one lane's being cheated a little bit instead of spreading that 18 inches over both sides.
Correct, yeah.
So the one thing I thought, I know Lee said that sight distance wise, they may have not striped it quite correctly because it's supposed to be parallel parking for the first few stalls, then angled parking to give you more line of sight whenever you're pulling out there on the high school. So you're supposed to look at that. And I thought, well, worst case, if it were left, I would probably put some sort of like delineators post or something like right in front of the curb so we know it's there when we plow.
Sure.
Kind of like you see the delineators along Brentwood Boulevard by Starbucks. Just so it's you can get reflectorized ones just so you can see these posts if you're looking down the road and don't miss the little 6-inch curve and then hit it with your car.
Okay.
That might
So
be a solution.
you're checking into it though.
Yeah, we are. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
All right, move to Eric.
All right, I have a couple things for you this month. The first is McGrath and Mark Twain PTO request. This is something they've done in the last couple of years. There will be a resolution on the board for the board meeting on Tuesday, but just kind of want to let you guys know it's very similar to what they've done in years past, and we're very supportive of it. Secondarily, the Brentwood Lighting Ordinance and Community Garden, those are two projects that we're still working on. We didn't quite get everything done with the holidays, so we will have that ready for you guys in February. And then the last one is Brentwood Days. So we kind of kicked that off last month as a little bit of an introduction, and I just kind of put what we talked a little bit last month. You know, I saw it was on social media. It feels like the push is to keep it in the sports complex. I just want to confirm that so we can start moving on with Brentwood Days.
Comments from anybody?
I mean, the only clarification I'd say is I think the interest is that there's rides. Now, whether that absolutely means it has to sit at the Brentwood Sports Complex, or if there's creative ways we can figure out having rides in the new park area, not obviously on areas that's going to cause damage and all that, but I think generally the consensus that I've found is that people would like to still retain that part of Brentwood Days. And I don't know that anybody's saying, oh, it has to be this many rides or this type of ride, but rides for the kids is something that's important. Seems to me that's important to the community. So wherever we can creatively figure that out, I think that's the guidance.
We've looked a lot. We'll continue to look. I mean, there's spots like, well, we can put one ride here maybe, or we can put one ride over there, but we won't. I don't think we have a spot unless we can find a way to safely do it in the parking lot, which I'm still hesitant to do. A big enough spot where we could do it, unless again we can get county to shut down Brentwood Boulevard, and I think that'd be wonderful for a weekend. Actually, a whole week. I set them up. So I mean, we'll keep looking. I mean, the point is, like you said, is that we need to kind of push forward with the rides, make sure we have them ready to go for the date. So we'll do that, and then we'll continue to kind of evaluate as the park gets a little bit more completed. I'd say that there's no way to do it, but we're trying to find. We'll try to figure it out. We get a little bit hesitant to put it across the street, and then I almost have two separate events, and that scares me a lot, especially as a parent. The Brazil is not as flat as I would have hoped it would be, where we could have got a lot of them there. And the pathways, while they're wide, aren't really designed to fit big carnival rides. So those were things we've looked at a lot, and we'll continue to evaluate some stuff. But I think the marching orders is at least to have rides somewhere, someplace.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Jeff. I mean, when you first brought this forward, I was, we got to use this new park, this wonderful park. After kind of hearing that feedback, which is, it's hard to discern what people are trying to tell us when people are saying a lot of things. But, I think one thing is we've put this town through a lot of change, and this would be a big change of one of the core kind of traditions of this town. And I think that would be upsetting to a lot of people. And I've kind of come around in my own personal thinking of, even if it's back at the sports complex, it's kind of like the county fair, it's not in the normal area, it's out in this other area, and we have food being served in stands instead of food trucks anyway, so I feel a lot better about even if it is back over at the sports complex after the feedback I've heard personally, so that's yeah, Nancy?
Well, and I completely agree. I think people expect the rides. It's how people get their kids to go because they're rides, and then it builds community because then the adults can gather. But it seems like there's so many opportunities for incredible different programming at Brentwood Park that there'll just be more opportunities for us to gather as a community.
Yeah, and we are. One of the things that aren't on here, we're starting the process of trying to plan for the grand opening of the park. I've not told Bola this, so she always likes it when I bring up things without letting her know. But I think we secured a mobile axe throwing trailer, which I think would be a lot of fun for adults. So we're doing some things that might be a little bit different.
Is that like
course
the
I
old
have not
Merrill
heard that.
dunking booth kind of where he stands in there and?
No, it's just, I mean, it's a interesting activity.
I just did that actually on a business trip, and it is pretty fun.
Yeah. So that's all I have right now, and
Want to tell them the other surprise you have?
Oh,
I don't know what's what. No, I don't want to talk about that, Bola.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've been harassing my staff about making sure this event is great, and so if any of you are Encanto fans, it's a good kids movie right now, and they just did Encanto live at the Hollywood Bowl. If you have Disney Plus, I suggest you watch it. But there's one glorious scene when, as they're singing a song, there's a donkey with a unicorn horn in a tutu that dances across the stage. I mean, pirouettes, all that stuff. And so I sent an email to my staff, like, I need a dancing unidonkey at the opening event. And it's just what I want. We won't get it, I understand. And my staff actually thinks I still want it. So if they're watching this now, Brad, they know I was just joking. But
they're not watching it.
Brad might be. But yes, so yeah, that was, and I told Bola that too, and she thought I was serious too. So sometimes I can fake my boss, which is good and bad, I guess.
So back to the carnival ride. So Eric, you feel like you have clear direction?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, especially with them, is getting them under, making sure they're on the date and it's right about the time we do it. So that's the most important part. So everything else at least we know that we have a month or two to finalize the location if we can figure out anything better for the new park. If not, my biggest thing about the sports complex is the amount of damage they do to the ball fields, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, Nancy?
So I just have a thought about Brentwood Days and the fireworks. I've gone to a couple of events with these amazing laser shows, so I have no earthly idea the cost and what the comparison is, but it might be something to look at and something new and different, either for Brentwood Days or for the opening of the park or something, but they're phenomenal.
We've looked into some of those things. We've talked about the drone shows you've seen out there are incredible too.
They're drone show. No, yeah, I said laser.
there's
they were
laser and
drones.
drone,
I
I
don't
mean-
really know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so
Just know it was cool.
we looked at it a couple years ago, and ultimately we still stuck with the fireworks.
Okay.
But it is something where we look at see if the price comes down, because you need at minimum 250 to 400 drones to create a good show. But it's amazing. I mean, I think the first time I saw it was at the Olympics when they did it, the Winter Olympics 5-6 years ago, and it was incredible. So
Have you gotten your training on our drone yet?
what's that?
Have you gotten your training on our drone? You can
No,
that
not
can
yet.
Be part of your.
But staff is actually working on that. We're going to have a couple people who get their FAA license so we can drive it, and and especially do some video over Brentwood Park as we're finishing up construction. And even after the park opens, let's drive it over or fly it over the playground to get video of the playground as new pieces come in. It's going to be great too. So
Yeah, you got to start talking like a pilot. You don't drive it anywhere.
that's right, right.
You'll need a call sign and, suit, all that
I
stuff.
have to think of some good ones.
I think not to change this, but a lot of those videos, can't remember the company that did it, that we posted on Facebook or whatnot, have been well received.
Oh,
Yeah, Planning Design
Yeah.
Studio did
Yeah.
them. So they're nice enough to share them with us so we could share them.
All right, any other questions for Eric? Thank you.
Great.
All right, going to planning and development, Whitney?
I just wanted to give an update on the MyGov. We have transitioned to the MyGov version 5. And at the end of the year, we get all of the new contractors registrations, all of the business license renewal. So we've been very busy. I wanted to give a commendation or shout out to our staff, particularly Jessica Study, who's been the lead point on coordinating with MyGov and getting everybody's permits in, corrected if they needed corrected. I did include a business license renewal message from Michaels, who indicated they thought that this new version was much easier. So, not Michaels, I'm sorry. First watch. Yeah. So we've just looked, and as of now, we have 100 in review process at different stages, and we've issued 196 since December. So,
Great. Yeah, Nancy?
So are there any businesses who are still straggling? I know every few years we'll get someone who didn't know or didn't pay, and if there's a changeover, I just don't
Yeah.
want something else to be blamed.
yeah. So business licenses aren't fully due until, or they don't get a late fee until February 15th. My understanding is MyGov has a pre-letter sent emails out in batches. So the first batch, they go by week. So we'll still be going through them all up for the whole year because we get new ones in as well as renewals until February 15th. And then we try to follow up on all of those that have not renewed or paid or so. Yeah, back in November, we were still following up with some that hadn't completed the process from the previous year before we started the migration. So we were trying to clear those things out as much as possible. So.
Anyone else? All right, thanks, Whitney. All right, go move on the SUSCOM. Guess Eric's coming back.
So a couple quick things about SUSCOM. The first sustainability plan, we talked about that, I believe, last year, but it is, the first draft is done. I'm in the process of reviewing it, getting back to my marketing person, Sean, who did all the work, honestly, and making it look nice and pretty and legible. And then we'll take it to the committee for their first review in January. So it's still our plan, hopefully in the first quarter, to get this in front of you guys to review. The Green Dining Alliance, the city has reached out, the communications manager reached out to all eligible Brentwood businesses to talk to them about the Green Dining Alliance, and most importantly, about the $100 rebate that they get if they choose to become Green Dining Alliance certified. Janet kind of said that they took the information. No one really said, yes, I'm doing it. No, I'm not doing it. But they all kind of took the information. So on there. And then we are adding a student, a new student member to the commission. Alderwoman O'Neill talked about maybe seeing if we'd want to reach out to the high school to see if they'd like to have kind of a person on the commission to kind of give us a little bit of a younger voice and talk about some things that might see from a different angle. They'd be a non-voting member, but we think we have a person in mind. Eloise Ayotte has been contacted, and we're trying to see if she's available to come. And last, which was not in here, but it just kind of came up today, is just a kind of a touch base that the Midwest Climate Summit is coming up February 21st through 23rd. It's going to be on the campus of WashU, so it's nice and close. It's $395, but the good news is because we are members of the Midwest Climate Summit, we get 2 free passes. So we can talk about that at SUSCOM and other places to see.
Great. Any questions for Eric? Thanks for the update. All right, we're going to consent agenda. All we have there is meeting minutes.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
Great. Anyone opposed? Or all those in favor, say aye. It's been like a
Aye.
year. Anyone opposed? Nay? Okay. All right, we'll go in the old business, the Stormwater Master Plan. These are the ordinance updates. Dan? Or Whitney.
Whitney. Who's presenting this? Okay, so we met with Gonzalez earlier on this week. Part of the change order for them was to take a look at the city's municipal code and make some changes, so they're more in line with some of the discussion you have and the master plan, stormwater master plan. So there are multiple amendments that they're proposing, and I think one thing we found interesting in the meeting was that they're referencing some of the fee schedule within the ordinance, and, you know, those are liable to change every year. So we've asked them to remove that, and Whitney will add it to the city's fee schedule for planning development, which will be going to Ways and Means at the February meeting. So we hope to bring all these amendments before you in February. They make sense, and they keep us in line with what's the city's, you know, vision for how we manage stormwater going forward.
So I didn't fully understand this agenda item. So they pulled out the existing ordinances, correct? So that's what all the documents that are in there are the existing, not their recommendation for changes, right?
The existing, but within those documents, I don't know whether you see red line. They're red line documents. There are no red line documents. The versions we saw had red line documents. I'll re-upload it so you can see it. They're still in draft mode.
Okay, so do we need action here, or?
No, just information.
Okay.
Will we have an opportunity to discuss this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about it again
You'll
next
talk
month.
about each one, whether you are in agreement with their recommended changes, and then you would take action,
Okay.
recommend to the board.
Okay, so we're coming back next
Oh,
month?
yes.
Oh, okay, great, because I had some already, but,
Good.
My bet is, because I bet about a lot of us are just looking in the Word viewer, and that doesn't have it in draft
Yes.
mode, so
I'll
that's
just
probably.
email it to you.
Okay.
So you can see it.
okay.
All right, new business, Field 1.
All right, so I won't go word for word for the memo, but the basis is Field 1's still a mess. We basically put a very large Band-Aid on it for Brentwood days, but basically the infield is still unlevel. We have lips all over the place, and as we start working with some of the contractors came out, the way to fix the outfield is to basically put in new material, level it out, grade it, and then seed or sod it. Problem with doing that, the infield's the easier part. We could do that. We can do that in 3 to 5 days. Problem, if you do anything to the outfield, you're really basically keeping people off of it for 6 months, which means the high school baseball season. That becomes the real issue. So the idea is to, when you do the infield, some of the extra materials that you have to take out of the lip, you could use to help even out the outfield. And so there's some cost savings by doing it both at the same time. Also, the fact is you get more time for grass to grow if you do it. The longer you keep people off. So those are the kind of the concepts of it. And as we've talked, we still have an issue with running water. And so one of the options, which is option number 3, is do we want to try to put a little bit more money into the field and try to see if we get water moving? So what happens is our fields are so compact right now because of all the flooding that we've had in the past and the carnival rides that the water just does not move. It sits, and it needs to evaporate more than anything else. It takes a very long time for it to actually get into the ground, no matter how much we try to aerate and do everything. So when we're uneven, we have all these shallow pools in the outfield, which is what we have right now. Water just sits out there for days. So even if we only do the infield, the outfield's not going to be in great shape for the baseball team. It should be nothing atypical of the last few years, but the pools will be larger, and so it'll take more time to get it out. So it's not a great situation at all. If we put in sort of a drainage system, that might help in the future. and you put it down low enough, by doing that, you put it down, you actually put in some better dirt and sand mix above it. Hopefully you get some seepage through that water at that point, and then it comes through. Cost on that, heck, we don't have a cost right now. It's not too much because you're already down low, so you're just digging a little bit, putting the piping in, put it out. But I don't have an exact cost because we would need to do design. Repair should be FEMA reimbursable because a lot of this would happen during the flood. If we separate them, FEMA might not pay for the outfield. We'll definitely pay for the infield. Probably the outfield might be questionable. Definitely won't do anything for the water to put in the drainage system. That would be a mitigation project. We could talk to them about that, but that's a stretch to say we're mitigating water flooding in the future by putting in a drainage system. So I don't think they'll ever do that. That's really kind of what we've come up with the last couple of months. There are a lot of talks with a lot of people. And the really first question for you guys and for the city is, want to try to do everything at once? Do we want to try to separate where we do the infield now to get it ready for the high school season and then try to do the outfield later? We pay a little bit more. We might get a little bit better grass growing because if you grow the grass in October and keep everyone out of it off of the winter, you might get a better stand of grass instead of trying to do it in the middle of this summer. But there's pros and cons to each. So I think we're kind of here going, my perfect world, we do it all at once, but that's a hardship for the high school.
I mean, have we spoken to the high school? And do they, if they're aware of it, how does that impact their season?
We've not talked to them yet because we want to have this conversation first. If the direction from the committee was, look, we're good partners with the school district, we should do everything we can to get their season in, we'll go with option 2. And by doing option 2, then we'll let them know where we're at with the field, and we'll kind of let them know what the situation is. The other option, I mean, that's why we want to get to them as quickly as possible. Call them tomorrow, to be honest.
Yeah, Jack? Oh, sorry. Jeff.
Well, I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, as a coach for many years, coaching baseball and having players on that field and others, that was always a major frustration. You know, geese in the middle of trying to get in a baseball game, and there's geese in the outfield swimming around. You know, something has to be done, and I think the concern I have is that we also want to start to look at a parks master plan and the idea of what do we do with, I think a big question of what do we do with the Brentwood Sports Complex, now that it's a Brentwood Sports Complex, not just some softball fields and baseball field, right? I mean, what more multi-sport opportunities would we have in the future if we did an overhaul to it? I think those are good discussions for a master plan that I really hesitate to invest a ton of money into a drainage system, into something that we don't know, is that where the field's gonna sit if we decide to totally overhaul it?
Yep, that's a good point.
I think that if we can get FEMA money and there's a way to do it to where we can't have a major disruption to the high school season, then great. If there's a shared facility somewhere that another city would allow the high school to use, like Clayton or whatever, you know, for the season, that we could then focus on getting it done all at once, that would be ideal. So I think there's a lot of factors that, you know, still need to be inspected before we make a decision. And I do agree with you that the fall would be a much better time if we put down sod or tried to grow grass to keep it actually, because anything we do now and then it gets trampled for a season is never going to grow.
Yeah, Jack?
No, I was just going to say, you know, that field's been a problem for a long time, right? And I mean, it sounds like getting feedback from the high school, because if we leave the outfield as is, are they going to have much of a season anyway with that? You know, one rain could put them out for a week or two at that. And so then are we pushing ourselves back even more to try and fit in something? So I think in a perfect world, maybe if they had, like you suggested, some other close place that would be able to provide it and we could try and attack it. I'm not an expert on timing of when this all needs to be done, and I know obviously we're bumping up against it, but I know from personal experience that I see it all the time. You know, we play softball down there and everything. That field sits and you're like, how is there still water there? And so I don't know that they'd have much of a season, I guess is what I'm saying, in its current state. Would you agree with that? Assuming a rain, yeah.
Everything's weather dependent, right?
yeah.
I mean, I think what we would do if the direction was to move forward to try to get their season in, is the conversation with the high school. Would you rather have a grass on level outfield where you know it rains, we'll have some pooling, or would you rather us try to put level as best we can, because we wouldn't be able to laser grade everything, but we could start seeing it as, you know, it rains over the next couple months. Throw down seed knowing that you might be running through some compacted dirt instead of grass. You know, ultimately, if we get you know, a type of rain or anything, you know, we'll get some sort of invasive weed that will spread through the outfield a little bit. It'll look green, grass, but at least it'll be coverage. You know, but at least there'd be something there. So it's a hard decision either way. I completely understand. I'm a high school coach. I know the idea of wanting to get your season in the field that you're used to. You know, that's why we threw out option one, because at least we could maybe be able to still sneak in the high school.
Nancy, I have no comments really. Other than I agree with, you know, there's uncertainty. We might want to put a soccer field, you know, in the outfield, you know. I agree with you, Jeff, that we don't want to invest a lot.
Agree with that.
So is next step, talk to the high school?
Yeah, and talk to high school. You know, I think the idea is that we'll probably want to move forward on this fairly quickly if we decide to only do the infield. So, I mean, can we have somewhat of talking to the high school, move forward with option one if they're okay with the outfield type situation, or, you know, I just don't, I thought if we wait till February, what's the next meeting, 9th? Date,
Yeah.
then we're really pushing up against their season. Definitely start with high school and go there, and I can put it in the weekly report.
I mean, I don't want to speak as the chairman, and, you know, I mean, I hate to make a motion for one of the options before we even know what, as a contingency before we even know what their interests are. So it seems to me, I just feel like we need to take that step and see what their preference would be, and if they have other options at all. And if they don't, then I think we need to be able to be good partners and work with them. And if that means a special meeting of this committee just to kind of talk through the options quickly, then it seems to me that that's a good way to go. And then we can push it up to the board quicker that way, rather than waiting.
You'd be a good chairman. That's a great idea.
He was feeding me the lines. You know.
We'll go that route, and we'll get information back to you guys as quickly as possible.
Tough problem.
It's very tough.
There wasn't a creek there.
It's not perfect, but
Okay, thanks, Eric. All right, we'll move into item 10, citizen comments. All right, seeing no new business before the board, this meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.